Welcome to episode 3 of the SAU 53 video series all about competency-based education. In this video, we will take an in-depth look at grading and reporting in a competency-based system. We will show specifics about how competency-based grading supports students and how traditional methods of grading do not provide a clear or complete picture of what a student knows and is able to do. In a traditional system, teachers take assignments and grade them holistically, looking at things like, in this example, vocabulary, true-false questions, short answer essays, and a longer essay, and give one whole grade to a student for their test. In a competency-based system, rather than having the teacher grade an assessment holistically, they need to look at their specific competencies and performance indicators. In this case, the teacher is looking at 3 different performance indicators under reading. They have to do with interpreting theme or central idea, recognizing literary elements and how they shape text, and how a student determines meaning of words. They're also looking at a writing competency. In this example, a student can develop a focused topic with relevant facts, concrete details, quotations, or other information and examples. And last, they're looking at conventions of writing. This has to do with the final essay at the end of this test. To find the grade, the teacher has to put all of the like competencies or performance indicators together. So it doesn't matter the task that the student is doing in the assessment, but rather what competency or indicator is the student focusing on. What you will notice is that the student just got 5 different grades rather than 1 grade. This is the power of competency-based education. Right now, a student, a parent, and a teacher know exactly what needs to be focused on to support this student. They also know the areas that can be celebrated because the student is doing really well. While this may be a difficult concept to grasp, I want to show you the power of competency-based education. For our purposes here, we'll be discussing year-end or term-end grades. So in other words, what shows up on a report card. Let's go back to a traditional model. And if we look at something as simple as averaging, you'll see how this can actually be harmful to students. What you'll notice is that this student is receiving a series of grades. Let's just say that one day they have a bad day and they don't perform well. Look and see, because of the law of averages, exactly how much this hurts the student and works to their detriment. Additionally, because we're simply looking at a traditional grade, we don't know exactly where the student is struggling. As teachers and parents, we're then unable to support the student. As a student, we may not know what we did really well at or what we're struggling with. So let's just take a minute, wipe this away, and reframe our thoughts around what competency-based education is. I think it's really important to note that competency-based education does not simply translate from a traditional scale. In a competency-based system, we could look at that very same student, and if we look across one competency, let's just say this is reading, we can see that the student does fairly well. But just like in the last example, the student may have had a rough day or didn't perform well on one particular assessment. By calculating the mode or central tendency as opposed to the average, we see that this student's grade is not harmed in the same way as it would with averaging. Finally, we want to be able to show you an example of a competency-based rubric. This particular example is what Pembroke Academy is using at the high school level. Other schools and districts across our SAU are using similar language. Some are using a number system, some are using simply letters to indicate competence levels. Some of our schools are using a 3-point scale, while others are using a 4-point scale. The most important aspect right now is that the language towards the right of the rubric is similar. That language delves deeply into what a student knows and is able to do, and specifically gets to the rigor or depth of knowledge that a student is achieving. Remember that each school in SAU 53 will have a slightly different take on reporting competencies. All schools have agreed to a shared vision that we seek to achieve within the next 3 years. Make sure to stay tuned for our next episode, in which we will focus on what happens when a student does not achieve competence. This is called competency recovery. And episode 4 will take an in-depth look at different forms of recovery and the steps a student must take in order to demonstrate their readiness for reassessment.